Hi, my name is Ritter. I'm working as a DevOps engineer lead for Trusted Shops, and welcome to my talk, Good Reasons for Service Level Objectives. Before we jump into the actual reasons or good reasons, I want to make sure we are on the same page and therefore do a quick recap of some basic terminology. Starting with service level indicators, SLIs, as the name indicates, they are indicators. So they are either true or false for every measured data point in time, depending on the condition you defined. Looking at a concrete example of request latency, less than 5 seconds, every measured data point is either less or equal to above 5 seconds, so either true or false. When we now take this individual data points or these individual data points and add a success objective and a time frame to them, we are in the area of service level objectives, SLOs. And taking the concrete example from before, we could say 99% of requests must have a latency less than 5 seconds over the last 14 days. So instead of looking at every individual data point, we can now look at the total number of data points we got in the last 14 days and say for 99% of them, the condition of request latency less than 5 seconds must succeed. And as you can see, 99%, there's still a gap up to 100%. And aiming for 100% reliability is unrealistic. No one can guarantee that a system will always run for 100%. There are too many factors you can't influence. And also aiming for a really high number of nines in reliability might not be necessary for you and for your specific business case, because having more and more nines also creates more and more cost. And if there's no real expectation for this from your user side, it's not really relevant to invest that much money into that area. So as said, this gap from 99% in our concrete example up to 100%. So this 1% gap, this is actually the error budget. So the controlled room where we can have failure, and it's still completely acceptable and fine because we don't want to reach towards 100% of reliability. And error budgets basically define this, the amount of negative events we can withstand before we would violate our service level objective. So now starting into the actual reasons for service level objectives. And I've done it that way that we will always start with a small example and then followed by concrete ideas why I think SLOs might help you in this situation. Starting with one of the stakeholders is reaching out to our team and says the service is running too slow. So we now actually check the latency metric and compared it to like the weeks before, and there's no real decrease in latency. So it's still looking kind of the same as before. And we are not really sure what it's meant by running too slow. And now we see the problem coming up that no one really knows what the service was initially built for and what was ever defined as being fast enough and not too slow. And this is actually a problem some of you might have also encountered in their organizations, that there are informal expectations towards the service. Of course, every one of the stakeholders has expectations. Every engineer, every one from the business might have expectations what the service should deliver, but it's not formal, it's not documented. And this really generates a problem once one of the stakeholders is bringing up it's running too slow. No one can say it's running as expected because no one has ever defined this expectation. And they're defining SLOs and creating this shared language and this shared data to look at for both parties or for all parties, business, engineering, and so on, really helps you create this common understanding of the service capabilities. Also, when defining new services, and new features, it can really help you to define the requirements from the get-go. So should our service deliver 20 milliseconds of latency or 200 milliseconds or even 2 seconds? And how often should our service deliver this? And then having everyone to agree on this common goal objective. Next one, and this is a little bit more focused on the engineering side. as an engineer, we frequently get paged because of small spikes in the service latency. And once we open the alert, it's already resolved. So imagining like a PagerDuty incident you get, and then you click on this notification and it's already marked as resolved. And this might happen because you have a latency graph, which, for example, is like the one shown here. It's for most of the time fine, and we have this alert threshold set on 280 milliseconds, but then there are small spikes for one single data point in time where we are above this limit. And you could now, of course, argue that we could extend the monitoring to say, instead of going for like one data point above the threshold, maybe use two data points in a row. If they are above this threshold, then alert. But still, when looking, depending on our objective at the total time range, it might still be fine to have like 4 or 5 or 6 data points in a row failing. And even though if the rest of the time window is still succeeding, there's nothing to worry about because we still have our budget left. We are still above the reliability objective we back then defined. So actually using SLOs and error budgets for alerting will result in less noise for engineers. And especially when engineers are get paged very often, it will most likely result in an alert fatigue. So this really helps not creating alert fatigue, and especially when engineers are get paged like in the night, it will also in any case result in happier engineers getting less alerts and less noise of small spikes and all of that. Next one would be a team internal topic. So our team is facing the challenge to prioritize tech debt against new features. So for example, the business side is demanding new features, but engineers would like to work on some tech debt and improve the existing services. And when looking at SLOs, they should really be based on your user expectations. So there should not be any arbitrary value you define. They should actually be the expectations your user have. So the objective and also the indicator. And since this is what your users expect, undercutting the reliability objectives also means that you're not meeting the user expectations anymore. And not meeting the user expectations makes the users unhappy. And this then generates a direct business impact because unhappy users might move away from your service. They might move to a different service. So creating this direct link between resolving tech debt and having a positive business impact by bringing up the reliability back to the value which was defined can really help this prioritization between tech debt and new feature development. These are basically some of the reasons, and this is not a complete list by any means, but some of the reasons I think might be a good idea why to start in this case with service level objectives. And I'm pretty sure there are way more reasons in your specific organization once you get started with implementing service level objective or even thinking in them. So how to get started? I actually think that, starting to think in service level objectives for existing and new services is a good starting point. As mentioned before, there are most likely some informal expectations people have towards a service, and documenting them and also thinking about what the users expect and that we don't have to deliver 100% or near 100% of anything, bringing these points in, making informal formal, seeing the user perspective and not trying to aim for 100% are really good points to start just thinking about a value for your SLO. And then once you have this defined, what we want to achieve and how often we want to achieve this, then starting to measure the actual reliability of your service will be the logical next steps, because you want to know how good you are actually in like comparison to this objective you defined. So that's all I have for you. Thank you for listening in. If you want to reach out to me, you can find the domain of my website on the bottom. Also my Twitter handle. Always open for feedback or questions. Thank you for listening, and wish you a great rest of the day.